Hello, everybody. Today, I'd like to welcome Dr. John Kotter to the Truist Leadership Series. This is going to be a great discussion. John is regarded by many as the authority on leadership and change. He's a best-selling author, award-winning business and management thought leader, entrepreneur, and Harvard professor. Through his ideas, books, and company, John helps mobilize people around the world to better lead organizations in an era of increasing rapid change that we've all experienced. John's work has helped transform organizations, touch countless lives, and continues to inspire as he works tirelessly to achieve his vision of millions leading, billions benefiting. It's great to have you with us, John. We really welcome you to the Truist Leadership Series. Thank you for your time.
Oh, Kelly, it is my pleasure.
Well, we're excited about this. And for our audience, I'll just tell you that there's some exciting things that you're getting ready to hear about that will help change your life and make you more successful and help change your business and make it more successful as well. So, John, you've been studying change since you were a student at MIT. And, your latest book, simply titled Change, has just been released during what we hope is near the end of the COVID-19 pandemic, a period of intense change like none of us have ever witnessed before. And I would just say to our audience, after I read this book a few weeks ago, we quickly ordered 28,000 copies for all of our managers and our community advisory board members, simply because this is a very profound book and we are in extraordinary times and people, leaders need help in terms of dealing with the change that we're going through. I've observed, John, over time that effective leaders are clear about their reality. They have a clear vision about where they want to go, and they have the courage to go there. So let's start with kind of assessing this pandemic. So from your perspective, what are some of the most significant aspects of the reality of this pandemic?
Well, I think it's very useful to keep in mind that although the pandemic is, in a sense, a once-in-a-century phenomena, it's really just another blip in a trend that has been going on for a long time. A trend in which things are moving faster, more is changing, the world and the nation is more interconnected, there's more uncertainty, more volatility. This was a spike, especially last March and April, in that trend. But that trend in general is going to continue. God help us, I hope not with another pandemic, but the data is very clear, industry after industry, federal government, state government, local government too, that the rate of change, the amount of change, the complexity of change continues and will continue to go up. Now, the good news from the pandemic, I think, amid all the horrors that we've seen in the last year, is that people who had little real sense that a lot could change quickly now do, and that's useful. And some organizations who have not had a whole lot of practice in trying to change were forced into trying to adapt more quickly to the conditions last year and the conditions as they've evolved this year. And that's useful. I think a problem for us all is that a lot of people are assuming they're going to go back to work and things will settle down. They're not going to settle down. And it's even hard to predict exactly what the next particularly important changes will be that will come at us. So the pandemic has been important in lots of ways, not the least of which is it's alerting us to a current and future reality that we're just going to have to get better at dealing with.
Well, that's very, very true from my observation. And I think you're right that, getting people to the mindset that we are in a dramatic period of change. We've always had change, of course, but it is accelerating, as you say. It is dramatic in many cases, but it is always there. And for that reason, one of the things you've said is that change always produces threats, but it produces opportunities too. So what are some examples of threats and opportunities that you have seen coming out of this pandemic?
Well, let me give you an example of an opportunity that is in front of everyone right now. And at least from my discussions with people who are executives, middle managers, and are running organizations, too few people are aware of. And that is the opportunity not to go back to work, which is the way it's usually phrased this fall, but to go back to work better. That is to say, because of the pandemic, most organizations were forced to give up some processes or habits that frankly no longer served any useful purpose. They were a function of history. And if you consciously, intentionally identify those and make sure they don't sneak back onto your platform and way of doing business, that's a real opportunity for improvement. Another opportunity is simply because inevitably there will be changes that have to be made in the next 6 months. There's the opportunity to hold on to some new ideas that have been developed in the last year that were thought of as kind of pandemic specific, but are really just better ways of operating. And going through the change that's coming up over the next 6 months offers an opportunity to just strengthen your change muscle. And if there's anything that both individuals and organizations need to be doing these days is grabbing every opportunity to strengthen their kind of change mindset and change muscle.
Yeah, so I like that way of thinking about it. So change is prevalent, it is permanent. There are opportunities and threats in the midst of it all. So are you saying that we all need to really develop a skill set following our mindset to be able to recognize the opportunities and threats? It's almost like we need a class, all leaders need a class in understanding opportunities and threats in change. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I think so. I think that the even in good businesses, I'm not talking about people who are in trouble. Even in good businesses, the average understanding and expertise and capacity to produce behavior like spotting opportunities that are really important, like getting excited about those opportunities and mobilizing yourself to try to take advantage of them, and role modeling for other people, that kind of behavior, which is all very leadership type stuff. That has become relevant to a lot more than just people on the executive committee. And what leadership does, unlike management, its central function is helping you to adapt to changing conditions, helping you to mobilize people to take on great opportunities and great challenges and achieve what is on the surface often seems like very, very perhaps too aspirational, but in fact is not. Management is a set of processes that are aimed at keeping a complex organization running daily, which is an enormously difficult task. It's keeping the trains on time, etc. And traditionally, a few people on top were tasked with the leadership chores some people in the middle were the management chores, and then the people at the bottom just did their technical or professional jobs. In an increasingly changing world, you need more people at more levels in an aligned way because they have some shared sense of what the opportunities are. They have some shared sense of purpose, of meaning, of mission. You need more people at more levels providing that initiative to be able to figure out what is going on out there, where the opportunities are, and then to capitalize on them fast enough. This is going to be a skill set that becomes just increasingly important over the next, not year or two, but the next 2 or 3 decades, I think.
I really, really agree with that, John. I think that's going to be required leadership 101 before we know it. It should probably already be now. I want us to talk a little bit about a concept, John, that I consider to be one of the most profound concepts in your book. And again, for the audience, this book is called Change. And this particular concept is really powerful. So in this concept, John talks about a dual system of survive and thrive. So can you talk to our audience, John, about this concept, how important it is for leaders to understand it and apply the understanding if they're going to survive themselves and thrive in the future?
Sure. What we have found is it's a very useful concept to apply both personally and to individuals in your context, as well as to groups and organizations. The people who study the human brain have made a lot of progress in the last couple of decades in actually coming up with some insights that are useful to us who are interested in making our organizations perform particularly well. And what they found is that all human beings have a very, very strong kind of survival system built into them. It's almost as if we have a radar that goes 24 hours a day looking for threats. And when it sees something that it perceives to be a threat, it sends out chemical signals which create anxiety, create what has traditionally been called fight or flight. More blood goes to our muscles. And a long time ago, this was to help us deal with physical threats. So saber-toothed tiger comes along. Immediately, this system in peripheral vision sees the tiger, and people don't even need to think. Their minds focus on this threat in a millisecond, and they climb a tree and stay up there until the tiger gets bored and goes away. That system is with us today, and it reacts not just to physical threats, but to psychological threats, ego threats, career threats, anything. And we live in a very noisy world where if you spend enough time reading the newspapers, you can send your survive system into total panic. And when that happens, you've got a problem because it shuts down a second system that's built into all human beings, which is the system that helps us thrive over time. The Thrive system has radar too, but it's more aimed at spotting opportunities. When it sees an opportunity, it sends out signals too, but the signals create not anxiety or fear or anger. It creates excitement and passion and mobilizes us to want to capitalize on the opportunities. And as long as we take action and get feedback that we're making progress, the increased energy level that comes from the Thrive system, if you will, can maintain itself for a remarkably long period of time. Unlike Survive, which is built more for a blast of activity to eliminate a threat or to solve a problem. The same thing happens at the organizational level. Organizations are, through their systems and processes and their people, are very powerfully looking for threats and problems, and will go into a high stress reaction focused on trying to eliminate them. And they need that. Both individuals and organizations need a Survive system working well. The challenge is, especially in a noisy world with a lot going on, with a lot changing, where there could be the Survive system organizationally and individually can feel like there are so many threats and so many of them are not under our direct control that they overheat, if you will, shut down Thrive, and you've got a real problem. And a lot of what leaders are great at, I think, Kelly, is making sure that the Survive parts of us and their organizations and the people who follow them do not overheat into a panic, but stay at a kind of a modulated, rational level to solve real problems. And then the big emphasis is on the Thrive piece, is on helping people to see opportunities, encouraging them to look for opportunities, demonstrating the very real and sincere passion that they feel about those opportunities, getting barriers out of the way so that people can make progress, get feedback, and keep that going so that they can undertake big projects that require a lot of change and succeed. And this simple way of thinking about both individuals and organizations, we have found, can be enormously helpful for individuals and for people in executive and managerial positions in kind of diagnosing first for themselves where they're at and how they can become more effective, and then for their organizations. Too many individuals, Kelly, in my judgment, and I'd be curious if this fits your own perception too, too many individuals are in a too much of a heightened state of Survive and too little heightened sense of Thrive. And the same is true for organizations. Too many organizations are a little too running around in circles in mild panic around the what they perceive to be the daily threats, and are underactivated on looking for opportunities and passionately making progress in achieving those opportunities that come from a changing world.
Well, I just think that's so important. That's why I said this is one of the most powerful concepts in your book. And one of the things, John, that I've observed is that one of the reasons Survive is so pronounced in people's lives and in companies, but particularly at the individual level, is that we hold so much in our subconscious. I tell people, you have to remember your brain is like a computer. It's like a sponge, and everything that goes in from the day you're born is still there. And so we all have these demons in our subconscious, these negative thoughts that most often come out of something that happened when we were a child that seems scary as a child, but as an adult, they're not rational. But we never have the self-awareness to bring them to a rational level and kind of dismiss them. So as a result, something happens in our reality. It triggers that subconscious fear, and we immediately go into survive mode. And it's hard for people to get out when they don't really even understand what's causing it anyway, isn't it?
Absolutely. absolutely. And by the way, that short explanation that you just gave, Kelly, which didn't take more than a minute or a minute and a half, a good Harvard-educated psychotherapist would give you an A plus. This this is so important, and it's not well recognized or understood, and it creates a lot of problems for a lot of people, including good people.
Right. Well, let's talk about something now that I think we both agree is an almost certain way to help people and companies, organizations move from survive to thrive, and that is purpose. At Truist, we talk more about purpose than anything else. And what I've observed, what we have observed, is that even in the midst of real survive threats that are out there, there are real problems and challenges in the world. When you can get focused on your purpose, when you be passionate about your purpose, it doesn't make the problems go away, but it gives you the energy to figure out how to deal with them and to drive to push through those obstacles to move on towards your purpose. You talk about that some in your book. Could you talk about it for our audience?
Yes, and you're absolutely right. Purpose, opportunity, mission, and vision are all very much kind of leadership words. If you study the great leaders throughout history, those are the kinds of words that are associated with what they do that creates the results that are so outstanding that they're remembered 100 or 200 or 500 years later. And those are very different words from threat and plan and budget and the like. And there's nothing wrong with those other words. They all, in a managerial sense, serve a useful purpose. But if you're trying to rev up the thrive side of things, to take advantage of, not just to cope with, but to actually thrive from a rapidly changing, complex world, you need to be talking purpose. And it has to be something that goes beyond what some poor person in a, I don't know, communications function 3 levels down is tasked to come up with and to cascade with communication. It has to be something that is real, heartfelt by the people running an organization. And when they can get a sense of purpose that is meaningful and feels meaningful to people, felt widely throughout the organization, not only is that great leadership, but that offers a platform from which, as you pointed out, you can start to get this increase in energy that will allow you to do things that often seem undoable, and to do them not for a short period of time, but for an extended period of time, because that kind of energy doesn't stress you out and burn you out. If anything, it's a positive feedback loop. It kind of propels itself and can maintain itself for significant periods of time. The problem is so many, and I wonder sometimes if the MBA education, which has been a part of my life for decades now, is responsible for spending so much time talking about economics and so little time talking about the kind of psychology that people come out almost mildly cynical when you talk about broader meaning and purpose and the like. they really miss that that is at the heart of all great leadership, and it is needed more than ever today.
Well, it really, really is. And I look back many years ago on my MBA experience, and it was a good school and a good program, but it didn't even remotely touch on any of these. And I've learned a lot about this as you have over the years. But if I had been taught that 40 years ago, I'd been able to make a bigger contribution to the world, because I would have understood what would be happening to myself in periods of survive and organizations as well.